I have a very short presentation to go through as we kick this off today. L. O'Casey has just placed a link in the chat that has the information about the agency's funding opportunities through the entire ARPA program. Al, do you want to give a bit of a preamble there real fast before we get moving?
Sure. So if you haven't stopped by that website, check it out. It has information about all 6 funding areas that the agency will be helping distribute money through. And we will also be posting each of the recordings from these sessions onto that website the following day. So if you want to watch what we talked about here, it'll be up there tomorrow. And then we also have intake forms on our website where you can sign up to receive more information on specific funding areas like CSOs in the future. So be sure to fill those out if you're interested in staying updated and involved.
Great. Thanks, Elle, and for the overall. And I'll just get started with my brief presentation. So thank you all for joining us to talk about the ARPA funding opportunities around combined sewer overflow abatement in Vermont. My name is Amy Polaczyk. I'm the program manager of the wastewater program in the Watershed Management Division. Today, I'll be joined by Patrick Monks, who is the manager of the Water Infrastructure Finance Program in the Water Investment Division, excuse me, as well as Tom Brown, who is a project developer in Patrick's program, and Lynette Clodon, who is the Chief Pollution Control Design Engineer in the Water Infrastructure Division as well. So the ARPA opportunities around CSOs are really focused on those facilities that have combined sewer overflows in their points in their collection systems. So if there are facilities here who do not have a combined wastewater collection system that both collects stormwater and sanitary wastewater, and then it also has overflow points that are driving wet weather overflow events, then this particular funding opportunity wouldn't include projects in your collection system. This is focused really on those facilities who are identified as having CSOs in their current operational NIPD's discharge permits and abating those issues. So I've listed those facilities here. However, if you're attending from a different municipality, please do reach out to me. My email's at the end of this presentation, or you may already have it. You can find it on the ANR website, and we can discuss what motivated you to join this conversation today. So the abatement of CSOs is really driven by the 2016 CSO Rule, and the purpose of, I've picked up 2 just direct quotations from the rule onto this slide. The purpose of the rule is to protect public health by making sure all the CSOs or combined sewer overflows that happen in the state comply with Vermont water quality standards, in particular the E. coli standard. And this rule supersedes the previous CSO policy that was in place starting in 1990. The CSO rule is being implemented in a 2-phase approach. Right now, all the CSO communities have received 1272 orders that essentially require those facilities to implement the 9 minimum controls, or NMCs, and devise a long-term control plan, or LTCP. The once those communities submit their LTCPs to our program for review, there is a second 1272 order that is issued that requires those communities, that the community in question, to continue the 9 minimum controls implementation, and then sets forth a schedule that requires implementation of the long-term control plan. And the goal of these long-term control plans is really to achieve compliance with water quality standards in the receiving waters. And I've put up on this slide some of the key aspects of those plans as required in or suggested in the guidance document that we have for developing those plans. So a key part of a long-term control plan is setting forth a set of plans that how the community will achieve the CSO, meeting the CSO rule. So reducing, abating, eliminating, or treating CSOs from the collection system. So given that communities with CSOs were in this phase of planning these projects, it's very clear that a goal of the ARPA project would be to provide the financial support for communities to implement the projects in the long-term control plans. So right now, $10 million has been allocated to facilities with CSOs based on the priority list in fiscal year for fiscal year 22. And we're anticipating there'll be $10 million per year in fiscal 23 and 24. There is flexibility around that, potentially based on need. So it's important that if you have projects, to put them forward into the onto the priority list, and Lynette and Tom will discuss about how those projects can be proposed. And so I'll turn it over to Lynette for presenting what the funding can be used for.
Thanks, Amy. So there's a number of different projects that have been developed under long-term control plans. And specifically, we're looking for projects that abate or treat CSOs and SSOs. So that could include separation projects, storage, flip lining, gray and green infrastructure, but it could also include monitoring, data analysis type projects. One thing you might be glad to hear is that if you're normally working with our Clean Water State Revolving Fund program, is that specific to the ARPA dollars that the cross-cutters don't apply. So even though this is federal money, the only time you would need to worry about the cross-cutters is if you had co-funding with clean water drinking water sources. The one exception being that if you have a project that is more than $10 million, then there would be some Davis-Bacon in what they're calling baby bacon. I don't know more details about that. Tom, do you want to jump in?
Well, sure. Baby bacon, that's a riot. So, I think most of the people on the call are already pretty familiar with our priority list application. Each year we update it and use it to develop our priority list each year. With the way this is rolling out, we are going to be using the priority list application as a tool to rank projects that would like to access the ARPA funds. We already have Chapter 2 is built to handle this type of work, and rather than reinvent the wheel, we decided we were going to continue on with Chapter 2 as the basis, and that is the priority list application is built directly off of that. If you have problems with the priority list application, you definitely should be working with your engineer, and we're also here and available to help out as well. The priority list application that we are going to be circulating or have circulated has actually had some minor changes to it. That actually, I would say that again, the application that is going to be going out is for the next fiscal year is going to have some changes in it that you'll notice if you've filled one out before. They're not substantial, just some changes that are going to help us verify information in our review process of those applications. So we will be, right now there's the priority list applications have been sent out on a mailing, and they're pretty much the same exact priority list application that was submitted for the existing priority list. If you have an application in with us already and are on our list, we aren't requiring a new one. This is for projects that need to be added to the list, because we are going to amend our priority lists for both drinking water and clean water. But for today, you would want to be getting on our radar, even if you're not looking for the construction funding right off, and then maybe you're looking for some preliminary engineering or final design funds. You would want to provide us with a priority list application so that we can see your demand and account for it, and get an idea of when you might be looking for your construction funds. So the existing amendment, we want everybody to have applications in by the end of December of this year. We are going to be in the beginning of December starting our next funding cycle. So we will be getting another mailing out to everyone calling for priority list applications for the state fiscal year 23 priority list, which is in the 22 IUP, just to keep it confusing. And then in 2024, the 24, we'll be looking for those by the end of February of 23. So it's really our regular funding cycle, except for right now, projects that need to get on the list. It's special. So get your applications in.
Thanks, Tom. And basically any questions that you have following this presentation, you can direct them to me and I'll get them to the appropriate person. You can also reach out to Tom, Lynette, or Patrick directly, knowing that, you know, this CSO community is kind of a finite group here. And so we're probably known quantities with this group, and you know who can answer the question that you have more directly. But I wanted to make sure that I provided my you know, easily spelled last name for you to reach out to me if you needed a clearinghouse to get those questions to. So the goal of this presentation today was essentially to keep it short and sweet and take questions that people may have about the process or projects. And so with that, I'll stop sharing my screen and we'll take your questions.
Wow, that was too easy. Oh, here they come.
Can they all be like this? Okay. So let's see. Who was the quickest on the draw here? The first one I have is Andrea Day. Andrea, you want to unmute yourself?
Sure. Hey, Tom.
Hello.
So for projects that are currently in planning and design, we're hoping for construction or to be ready for construction bidding, have documents ready in the spring. Might be a little ambitious, but that's our goal. So should we get on the priority list by the end of December or February or both? What do you recommend?
Well, if you think that you're going to be ready to go before July 1st with your construction, you should definitely get in by the end of December, because we will need to show you on our current priority list. And if you're coming in after that, then you would go ahead and wait for our next request for priority list for the next funding cycle.
Okay. Any what's the expectation as far as funding for the next cycle versus the one we're currently in? Do you have any ideas?
I'm not sure of the answer to that. I would say that we have this, as the earlier slide showed, 10 million a year basically for 3 years. So while that money is not coming through the Clean Water SRF program, it is using our process for ranking. And you will see on the next priority list that we will have an ARPA list that will be built, and the projects will be prioritized based on their priority list applications. Does that?
I have something to add. So the current offer is 100% grant for those projects that are ranked up to the threshold that we have for the authorization. So those awards are in progress on the first $10 million.
So that means probably next year, we can't guarantee it'll be 100%. We don't know what the structure of the funding is going to look like, because it's really happening far enough above us. But I do see Neil is here. Maybe he might be able to elaborate.
Amy, would you like me to?
You know I would, Neil. Thank you.
Okay, it's a good question. So the governor has recommended a $30 million investment, so $10 million a year for 3 years. The General Assembly has appropriated the first year of that investment. So to the degree that we've been able to already identify recipients and eligible activities, it gives us good reason to go back to the General Assembly and advocate for additional dollars for this program. In addition to that, the agency also has some additional ARPA dollars that are not tied to a specific program, but that are for the collection of programs that the agency that is implementing. And subject to our notification of the legislature, we can also tap into those dollars. So please, as Tom said, please do fill out applications for those projects that we don't know about yet, and so that we can be staging those and plugging them in. I think that we would intend to propose to keep the eligibilities the same, meaning 100% grant for eligible CSO activities. There's, as Tom noted, discussion that happens north of my pay grade as well, but that's sort of the game plan. So just wanted you to know that there's the interplay between the legislative activity, the agency's activity, and the governor's recommendation in the budget.
Thanks, Neil.
Yeah, thanks, Neil, because I think what it's important for people to know is that it's better to propose projects that they believe that they have on the horizon, so that there can be the demonstration of demand for this kind of funding to support future appropriations. So and also it helps us kind of understand where people are in implementing their long-term control plans. Even though I know that those requirements are listed in orders with specific deadlines as those are received, reviewed, and the orders are reissued. Unless anyone on the panel has other comments on that, I'll go to our next hand up, which is Merrick. If you'd like to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I just had a quick question on eligibility. We have sort of worked on a number of control plans, and we have some of those standard separation and storage alternatives laid out, but in most of them we've mentioned and sort of started to summarize, and there's been a lot of communities that have collected data on this, but there's never really been money to address this, and this would be roof drains and sump pump connections in systems. And I was wondering if this money, and a lot of those projects, it has to be a public-private partnership essentially, and if there was a chance that this money would be able to be put into that box at all, or if everything would have to be sort of done through the municipality. Thank you.
So I got this one if you want, Amy. Okay, so all of the ARPA money, according to the Treasury Department, has to be used in accordance with the Clean Water State Revolving Fund eligibilities. And we've specifically asked about this eligibility because it is a concern with many communities. And we got basically a little bit of an iffy response back from EPA that, this is something that could be eligible, but if and only if the municipality was willing to take over the responsibility of the interior plumbing and maintain ownership of it, which obviously makes it undesirable to the municipalities. So there's still not a good funding source for that at this point.
Thank you, Lynette.
I think I would throw in just a quick comment too is, as we don't really have a lot of details on how we're going to use ARPA funding for preliminary engineering and final design work and what the details of that are going to look like. If you haven't started your preliminary engineering or final design, the Clean Water SRF has a substantial amount of additional subsidy for these specific types of projects. We offer 100% up to $125,000 in loan forgiveness for specifically ARPA planning.
I'd add to that there are a couple of communities that have some on-the-shelf designs that maybe the SRFs don't know about yet. And so it'd be good to have a discussion about getting those listed and what and if anything would be required to get those listed.
Great. I did receive a comment also to bring up, even though we don't have any details of it, in addition to these funds, there's the IIJA that's coming in, the large infrastructure bill that passed last week. So we'll also be providing more details as that becomes available, but that is supposed to go through the SRF programs. So that'll be a little bit different than this with cross cutters and things like that.
Yeah, there's a great opportunity here for infrastructure, and it's a good time to get all these projects done. It's very exciting to be part of this opportunity to see this kind of investment in infrastructure when we've all been seeing that this has gone so long without this kind of level of funding from the federal level. So I know that we're all very excited to see these funds be put to transformative use on the ground in Vermont. Shane's submitted a question here about IIJA. Will the funding fall under the same buckets as ARPA funds or different ones? I I don't think that they will fall under the same buckets as ARPA funds because they will have different kinds of strings attached, but I'll let Neil speak to that because he's been way more plugged in.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. I don't want to co-opt this with an IIJA seminar. We'll probably be having those in about 3 months. For real. But what the Infrastructure Act does is it increases the appropriations to the state revolving loan funds, and it makes the match for the state to draw down the money a lot more advantageous. There's 3 categories of funding. There's standard SRF on the drinking water and the wastewater side. So there's supplemental appropriations for that, available at 10% match to the state and 49% subsidizable. There's a huge investment into the DWSRF for lead service line replacements, dollars that will be match free and 49% subsidizable. And then there's a substantial investment for emerging contaminants, a smaller investment on the clean water side and a much larger one on the drinking water side. Those dollars will be match free to draw down by the state and will be 100% subsidizable. That's all we kind of know right now. There's a lot more nuggets and wonderful things inside that we will be learning about, but that's what I can tell you for now, Shane.
Thanks, Neil.
Any other questions about ARPA CSO project or projects that you may have in mind? All right. Well, this was scheduled for an hour, but I think we could cut it off here if there's no other questions that we wanted that people would like to have answered right now, and you can reach out to us by email. And we look forward to working with you to make these investments throughout the state. Please do reach out at any time that you may have a question, and we will follow up as necessary to make sure the money gets out. Right.